here, so I don't. Is there anybody from Parks here this morning? Would you come up and visit with Penny Pearson? I guess not. Okay. All right. Finance. Pardon? Those are finance folks. No. Yeah. Are we going? Just another national award, no big deal. Good morning. At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for Thursday, July 26th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka is absent. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Would you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would ask those who are present today, if you have a noise-making device, if you would turn it to silent mode or off so as not to interfere with our electronic communications. We have a special recognition to make this morning. We'll do so at this time. I want to invite Tom Franzen and those who are with him this morning to join me at the podium. We have a special recognition that the Department of Motor Vehicles operation has received an achievement award, and it has to do with the fact that, and I'll let Tom give you a little more information, and this is not the driver's license. This is the Department of Motor Vehicle operated under the auspices of county government, where you go into register your vehicle, but in an effort to provide a higher level of service, a more efficient way for taxpayers to access the information that they need, the kiosk program, where you can go in and use a kiosk rather than going to a window. It's, I understand, become heavily used and very attractive for customers. So that's the activity that they received this excellent award for. And so I want to present the certificate to them and say thank you. Thank you on behalf of the organization, and thank you on behalf of our constituents and taxpayers who have to, because of state requirements, access the program that we have. So, Tom, if you'd like to make any comments, or Amy, well, that's fine.
I'd love to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Tom Franzen, Treasury and Financial Management. I wanted to thank the Chairman of the Board and County Manager's Office for the continued ongoing support that they provide for our motor vehicle operations here in Johnson County government. With that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Amy Meekerberg, who is my Deputy Treasurer, overseeing the motor vehicle operation. She has a few words she'd like to say about the award and the staff associated with it.
Amy?
Thank you, and good morning.
Just to talk a little bit about the self-service renewal kiosk program, it's a simple way for customers to come into the office and to renew their vehicles. The program is basically that. It utilizes a kiosk that accepts cash, checks, and credit cards, and it produces a receipt in lieu of a decal for those customers. So you may be familiar with these types of programs. Other agencies have done this, but there's several components that make this unique. The program began with legislative changes introduced by Johnson County in 2015. These changes allow customers to use their electronic receipt as proof of payment while they wait to receive their decal or sticker in the mail. The program is also a great example of a public-private partnership between Johnson County and Livewire Digital. Together, we collaborated on and designed a solution that was a fraction of the cost of other solutions identified and presented to us by the state of Kansas. And this solution meets our customers' needs. The program is also designed so that it could be easily adopted by other jurisdictions, and other county treasurers are looking at this and would like to adopt it as well. So after much work, the self-service kiosk was implemented in March of 2017. One kiosk is located in our Mission Motor Vehicle office and one in the Olathe office. On their first day, the kiosk produced and processed over 69 transactions. Since the program's launch, we've done over 30,000 transactions by customers on those kiosks. In 2018, this year, we're seeing that approximately 30% of our walk-in renewal customers are using the kiosks. So to date, our customers are using our most efficient and effective means to renew their vehicles. We have 86% of Johnson County customers renewing online, by mail, or using a kiosk. So successes of the program are positive customer feedback, continued change of negative perceptions, high adoption rates. We're seeing relief to the ever-increasing demands made on the motor vehicle operation. We're providing customers additional service delivery channels, enhancing our overall customer service, as the chairman mentioned. And this is a driver for us to help educate our customers about renewal options. At this point, we'd like to thank staff from the DTI department, as well as purchasing and legal and facilities, for helping us get these deployed, because it wasn't just an effort with our department. And we'd also like to recognize our team members that are with us today. We have Jamison Elmer, who's our Mission Motor Vehicle Manager, Joshua Schonifer, who's our Accounts Receivable Manager, and then one team member who's not with us that I'd like to recognize, and that's Megan Sadler. She had worked with TFM, and now she's moved on to our business operations, to be the Business Operations Division Director for the Department of Health and Environment. So, and then I personally would like to thank them as a project sponsor and working with them on a daily basis. You know, projects don't go without challenges, and I'd like to thank them for their hard work and dedication. And then we'd also like to thank our staff. Their input and feedback was very valuable throughout the project, as well as the fact that they continue to make this successful on a daily basis. Thank you.
Well, Amy and staff, thank you very much for your good work. This is just simply confirmation of the outstanding work that your staff does, and continuing to look for ways to serve taxpayers more efficiently and more timely. So thank you all very much. And do we have anyone from Parks Department here this morning? Okay, if not, we will defer recognition of a national award that they received, and we'll try to make connections and do that next week. That concludes our presentations. We will now turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's anyone present who would like to address the commission on an item which does not later appear on the agenda, would invite you to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to 5 minutes, and we'll be glad to receive that information. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission during the public comment period? There being no one to be heard, the public comment portion of our agenda is concluded. I do have one note for the record. I have signed Attachment C, Certificate Non-Federal Match Form for the Department of Health and Environment for the quarter April through June 2018 for outreach, prevention, and early intervention services. That concludes the notes for the record. Moving to the consent agenda, will the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda items?
Item number 1, consider approving July 5th, 2018 business session minutes. Item number 2, consider authorizing a contract to MEI Total Elevator Solutions for elevator maintenance services for a total amount not to exceed $115,000 per the University of Kansas Procurement Services Contract number 17010684. And item number 3, invitation for bid number 2018-043. Consider authorizing a contract with U.S. Engineering for equipment modifications at the Olathe Central Booking Facility for a total amount not to exceed $184,969.
Okay, thank you. Is there a commissioner who would like to have any of these items considered separately? Is there anyone present who would like to have one of these items considered separately? If not, it's back before the commission. A motion is in order. Mr. Osterhaus.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving to the action agenda, item number 4.
Resolution number 053-18. Consider approving to authorize and direct the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation internal improvement bonds, Series 2018A of Johnson County, Kansas, for the purpose of providing funds to finance certain wastewater improvements and voting machines in the aggregate principal amount to be determined, but now estimated to be $246,240,000, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, and making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. Blum, budget.
Nate Bloom, Budget Office. Yesterday morning, we held our GEO bond sale. There were 6 bidders with a low bid coming from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. The final par amount of the bonds was $232,790,000, and the true interest cost was 3.3%. The county also maintained its AAA stable rating for Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's. The bond issue will finance wastewater projects and voting machines.
So the net effective yield and what the maturity as long as was what 22 years?
The maturity is 22 years, correct?
22 years. So 3.3% was the effective yield. Yeah,
Yes.
very good.
That is very good.
Any questions? Anyone present who would like to speak to this item? All right, if not, it's back for the commission. A motion is in order. Mr. Osterhaus.
I'm going to approve and adopt resolution number 053-18, authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation internal improvement bond, Series 2018A of Johnson County, Kansas, for the purpose of providing funds to finance certain wastewater improvements and voting machines on the aggregate principal amount of $232,790,000, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents connected there within.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the resolution and authorize the issuance and acceptance of the interest rate on the bond offering that was out for bid. Any further questions or discussion? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Mr. Blum, I have one final question. The bonds for the courthouse, the PBC bonds, what's the time frame we anticipate for that issuance?
The PBC bond sale date is August 8th, and then the board will approve similar to today on August 9th.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next item.
Item number 5, RFP number 2018-015. Consider authorizing a contract with Springstead Incorporated for financial advisory services at an annual cost not to exceed $200,000.
Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. Scott Neufeld with the Budget Office. We had a pretty good discussion about this last week. This is a standard request for proposal that we do periodically for this type of service. We had a committee with folks from 5 different departments that participated. We had a strong consensus when the fee proposals were factored in. It actually stretched out the scoring because Springstead, in addition to coming quite a bit ahead, was in first place by quite a bit. Their bid was the lowest by a good bit as well. So pretty strong scoring across the board in terms of quality and price. And I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Neufeld, it's my understanding that Springstead was also the lowest bidder, is that right?
That's correct. They were about 50% below George K. Baum and over more than about 40% on Columbia Capital. We put out just a very generic bond issue of 30 million GO, 20 million refi that they price, and so it was based on that. So Springstead was quite a bit lower than both.
Okay, questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as I often from this DS question the number of proposers or bidders on certain projects like this, I have a sensitivity to that. I did have an opportunity, though, to meet with Mr. Neufeld and go into some depth on this. I think the approach they used makes a lot of sense, and I think the competitive aspects, I think, are evident, so I will be supporting this effort.
Okay. Other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone present who would like to address the commission on this item? If there's no one to be heard, it's back before the commission for action. Mr. Allen.
Thank you. I would move to award a contract to Springstead Incorporated for financial advisory services in an annual cost not to exceed $200,000 per RFP number 2018-015.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to award the contract to Springstead as noted in the resolution. Any further discussion? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 6, resolution number 054-18. Consider amending the FY 2018-2022 Capital Improvement Program, CIP, to include the Sheriff's Fleet Maintenance and Vehicle Storage Facility capital project and the purchase of forfeited property at 15755 US 169 Highway in Olathe, Kansas, from the United States Department of Justice to be primarily used to house the Johnson County Sheriff's Office Fleet Management Division, to authorize the reallocation and use of general fund reserves in an amount not to exceed $800,000 to fund the property acquisition, back taxes, and associated capital improvements included with the capital project, and to authorize the use of sheriff forfeited property funds in an amount not to exceed $200,000 for the purchase of related equipment.
Mr. Radney.
Yeah, good morning. Dave Rodney with the Budget and Financial Planning Department. This resolution in front of you here would be to amend our current 2018 CIP to include this Sheriff's Fleet Maintenance and Vehicle Storage Facility capital project. It does several things here. It allows for the purchase of forfeited property that's been offered to us by the United States Department of Justice. and then allows for us to pay the back taxes also that are due on that piece of property. And then additionally, there are funds that would help create the current facility to be able to maintain our sheriff's fleet and storage facility needs from the sheriff's office in that facility. As also here, there's a request to do a use of reserves from the general fund in an amount of $800,000, and then the sheriff's forfeited property funds in the amount of $200,000 to purchase some related equipment. With that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Okay, questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Mr. Chairman, this morning, Commissioner Brown, and Commissioner Brown, I don't want to steal your thunder, so cut me off at any point.
Please go ahead.
Called a meeting with the sheriff, Mr. Reinhardt, and Mr. Waters to talk about this facility. Mr. Brown had some concerns about costs and was gracious enough to include me. I think the discussion went well in terms of the cost of the facility. Mr. Brown, correct me if you feel differently. The only question that came up that I want to make sure, and this is directed more to Mr. Reinhardt or Mr. Waters, is the life cycle costing of the facility, because as Mr. Brown pointed out, a similar facility had quite a bit of utility expense, ongoing utility expense, and while we were getting this facility at a bargain basement price, the life cycle costs could be substantial. Mr. Reinhardt gave us assurances that that will be looked at and considered and mitigated appropriately, and Mr. Reinhardt might want to share that perspective with the commission as a whole.
Yes, good morning, Brad Reinhardt, Director of Facilities. It's really our standard process we use in facilities is to look at the life cycle cost of any improvement. And so when we get deeper into this building and determine what its needs are now and into the future, we'll take into account life cycle costs. So if there are additional improvements needed to, lower our ongoing operating costs, we'll certainly request that those be implemented. So we'll take that into account.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I've toured the facility with the sheriff and some of his staff. I'm very familiar with that piece of real estate. Have every confidence that this is a good move for the sheriff, for fleet management, to keep very, very expensive tools that roll around, centralized maintenance kept up by people who we have control of. We know who they are that are doing maintenance on all the fleet, the patrol, and on the rest of the bigger, heavier equipment. So I'm supportive of this and am excited about the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions at this time? All right, thank you. Again, is there anyone present who would like to address this item? If not, it's back for the commission. A motion is in order. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I move to adopt Resolution 054-18 to amend the FY 2018-2022 Capital Improvement Program CIP to include the Sheriff's Fleet Maintenance and Vehicle Facility Capital Project, including the purchase of forfeited property at 15755 US 169 Highway in Olathe, Kansas, from the United States Department of Justice, to be primarily used to house the Johnson County Sheriff's Office Fleet Management Division, to authorize the reallocation and use of general fund reserves in an amount not to exceed $800,000, to fund the property acquisition, back taxes, and associated capital improvements included with the capital project, and to authorize the use of sheriff forfeited property funds in an amount not to exceed $200,000 for the purchase of related equipment.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution and the purchase of the facility for the sheriff's fleet operation and vehicle storage. Are there any other comments? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Are there any other items to consider?
No, sir.
All right, moving to reports and communications. Ms. Penny Post Oak Ferguson, County Manager.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have before you the SERI report, the latest one that was published in July for year-to-date as of May this year. So the unemployment rate for May is 2.8%. The number of single-family homes sold year-to-date is 4,135, which is a about the same as last year. And then the number of single-family building permits is up 18% to 830 year-to-date. And with that, I'll move on to the ratings update. We have great news that you may have kind of gotten that indication from our earlier item, but we are reaffirmed for AAA from all three rating agencies for our GO bonds. And some of the things that the rating agencies said just in time for our $246 million bond issuance was that the county's outlook is stable with very strong management of finances, strong financial policies and practices, healthy reserves relative to revenues, and adequate debt burden. Johnson County's strong underlying economy and low unemployment also were cited as factors in assigning the top ratings. Also, AAA bond ratings from Standard & Poor's and Moody's for the PBC issuance, just leading up to the $164 million PBC issuance. So good news there, reaffirmation of that. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have our external auditor. Maybe.
Good morning. Mike Lowry with Allen Gibson Hulick. We were engaged to audit the December 31st, 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which includes the county's financial statements and the single audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. Before I get started, I would just like to thank the accounting staff and the whole finance team. The audit is a huge undertaking. They're always very well prepared, and they do that in addition to their daily work, and so it makes our job much more easy and helps the audit go smooth. So you should have received required communications in your board packets. This is a reminder that while we work with management to complete the audit, we actually work for the board. Audit standards require that we communicate certain matters to keep those charged with governance informed about matters related to the audit. I'm not going to go through the entire letter in detail, but I am going to hit some of the highlights. So any new accounting policies adopted, so did the county adopt any new accounting policies? They actually did not. They had, they adopted one, GASB 82, which had minimal impact to the county's financial statements. It was really just cleaning up prior issued GASBs. Usually what happens when GASBs, or what can happen when GASBs are issued is once municipalities start to implement those GASBs, some errors or some problems will get flushed out, and so the GASB will come back and issue a cleanup GASB for any identified issues. So that was GASB 82, and it really just had to do with the required supplementary information as it related to the net pension liability. So really no changes to the CAFR as a result of that. There are accounting estimates in the county's CAFR, believe it or not. Not all the numbers are hard and fast numbers. The significant accounting estimates in the county's financial statements is what we call incurred but not reported claims for general liability, workers' compensation, and health insurance. Accounting and reporting for post-employment benefits. So other post-employment benefits, the county does offer its employees that retire before their Medicare eligible health benefits on the county's plan. And then the other significant estimate is the net pension liability, which is the county's share of the CAPER's unfunded pension liability. In all three of those cases, the county does employ an outside actuary to help develop those estimates. And in those cases, we evaluate those actuarial reports. We also review the information that the county sent to those actuaries to ensure that the actuaries got the right information to develop an accurate estimate. And in all three cases, we concurred with the estimate for those three liabilities. Uncorrected misstatements. So that's kind of a bad term, but what that means is in the financial statements was an error discovered that wasn't corrected. And we had one of those errors this year, and that was related to some tax rebates. However, those errors have been corrected and are already in the books of records for 2018. So it's really just a timing issue. And the reason it wasn't corrected is because it wasn't material to the financial statements, and we knew that it had already flown into the 2018 books of records. So there were no audit adjustments to this year's audit. So I like to point out that that is really speaks highly of the accounting staff, that when we come in and do the audit, there were no audit adjustments. So that's a big kudos to the accounting staff. And we had no financial statement findings, so no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses as they related to control deficiencies. I always like to point out that there's a goal for, 3 goals for every audit. 1, did the county comply with all laws and regulations? Were internal controls in place, but more importantly, did they work? And do the financial statements accurately reflect the books and records? And I'm happy to report that the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes. With that, the county did receive an unmodified opinion on their financial statements. And as a reminder, that is the highest level of an opinion that you can receive during an audit. Moving on to the single audit, any non-federal entity that spends $750,000 or more in a year has to have a single audit. The county generally or routinely does spend $750,000 or more, and so they did have a single audit. This year, we audited 4 what we call major programs or 4 grant programs. That was the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, the Community Development Block Grant, Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers, and the Immunization Cooperative Agreements. And all 4 of those grant programs, we did issue an unmodified opinion on those as well. So with that is my presentation, and I'll stand for questions.
Let's go back to the error that you mentioned.
Yes.
Was that a typo, or what was the occurrence of that?
So the uncorrected misstatement, what those are is we might be done with the audit, the finance staff might be done, or pretty much significantly complete compiling the financial statements, and we might find an error. And so a decision is made at that point, is this error material to the financial statements? And from an audit perspective, if it's our opinion that the error is not material to the financial statements, we provide the option to management to either correct the error or not correct the error. If they don't correct the error, it goes on a list, and it should be attached to your required communications. And it is fixed in the subsequent year. So this related to some tax rebates that, according to the tax rolls, the county knew about the tax rebate as of December 31st, and it actually paid the tax rebate in January 2018. So they knew about the tax rebate December 31st, 2017, and paid it in January 18. The problem was that there was not a liability recorded in the books and records as of December 31st, 2018. But again, it was below our materiality thresholds, and we track all of those to make sure that they don't accumulate to where they become a material number.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right, thank you very much. Next, Ms. Highfill, Julie.
Good morning. Julie Highfill, Treasury and Financial Management. I'd like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to present the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFR that Mike just referenced. And a copy is available on both the external and internal websites, and you've all received your autographed copies, I believe, hard copies. Today, I just want to give a brief overview of the document. You guys are way more familiar with this than the listening public, so there are a few slides that have some background information that I won't go into, but it's available. And I do want to hit just a few highlights. So this report actually plays multiple roles. It, of course, contains our financial statements and provides evidence that our audit was conducted and that we got the unmodified opinion. And it also, these pages are reviewed by bond rating agencies to determine our rating. And you might not believe it, but other agencies look out at this. They can go to our website and see how Johnson County does things and find details about who does Johnson County invest their dollars with and what is their debt ratio. We have some standards that we look at too. We look at San Mateo, California for guidance sometimes. How are they doing things? So this is multiple roles in this document. And before I get into the financial stuff, pictures on the front are about some of our larger projects this last year, parks and libraries mostly. And to get more details on the inside cover, you can look. But when we're in the numbers all year long, it's kind of rewarding to see the end result of all these dollars and cents that have rolled through and all of these beautiful parks and libraries that are available for our public. And that's rewarding for us to see at the end of the rainbow too. So a word about how this is prepared. The staff that Mike mentioned earlier, 5 very fine seasoned professionals, and I would like to publicly thank them. And I feel very privileged to work with these folks that are committed to excellence, not just my group, but out in the departments and agencies. We have people who we couldn't do this without. They're committed to timeliness, accuracy, and learning new things as they come along from the GASB. So thank you very much to all those folks. So back to the numbers. 3 sections that we've talked about before: the intro section, financial section, and statistical. And the intro section mainly is about the introductory letter that gives you a profile of the county, talks about our economy, and why the CAFR and audit are even conducted. And then you'll see some organizational information, and that pretty much is the intro section. The financial section contains the very important auditor's report that you just heard about. And then there are some narrative and chart discussions about mainly comparing this year to last year in that section. That is, any major changes would be explained in that section. Quite a few financial statements would follow that, and then we end the financial section with the footnotes. So if you only had a chance to look at one financial statement, the biggest, broadest one would be actually 2 that are paired, like a balance sheet and income statement would be the statement of net position and the statement of activities. And those give you the biggest overall view of everything that happens in the county. So that's the statements. There's a lot of statements that are, more specific and more individualized, but read them all if you like. But the biggest ones have the big picture. And so the footnotes, I'll come back to the footnotes in just a second. I also want to talk about the fact that parks is in this document. Sometimes we provide financial information that does not include parks. But in here, there are a component unit, and so you'll see sometimes a separate column for parks or maybe a row on a statement that is specific for parks. They have their own footnotes, so when Johnson County has a footnote, then if it's applicable to parks, you'll see the parks footnote follow that. But they are not included in the stat section, just so you know that. So the statistical section is a standalone set of charts and graphs with summary information that you can see. It'll pick a number like fund balance out of a statement and then talk about what's happened in probably 5 or 10 years with that same number. And that's what you'll see in the statistical section. Helps kind of see some trends. So I did say I wanted to talk a little bit more about footnotes this year. Of the 188 pages, 61 are footnotes. And so why do we do footnotes? They're required. We have a prescribed format that we have to follow. Everything in there is because it's required to get our award. And you heard Mike talk about the GASB. They will come out with, they'll look at financial reporting in general for governments and say, what could we do better? What could help people understand better? And so we'll have a new GASB to implement, and that could result in a new footnote on a given year. If you look at the footnote section, the first one is the most comprehensive. It's 9 pages long, and it's called the Summary of Significant Accounting Policies. And that's just how we have to do business in the accounting world, the rules that we follow. And that one's 9 pages long. There are 15 more after that for various reasons, talking about all of our cash, all of our debt, all of our capital assets. The big chunks of our balance sheet basically are discussed, and also some of the things that we're required to be compliant with or required to disclose. And so that's what you find in the footnotes. So one last thing about, just to give you an example of how a new footnote can come along, the GASB came up with GASB 77. We talked about it a little bit last year, the tax abatement disclosure GASB. And so we early implemented that last year. It was required for this year, but we had it last year, and so we've got 2 years of history on that one. As we gathered that information from the appraiser's office, it resulted in 2 tables. We have a table that shows the couple of abatements Johnson County has given, because counties don't give abatements as a rule. It's mostly from cities. And then we have a summary table of the cities and all of the dollars that have affected Johnson County that they've given out. So that GASB was implemented, and when the dollars came to pass, they really weren't material to our financials because our general fund is very large. But we went ahead and implemented anyway because we had the information gathered and people are interested. So that's how a new GASB results in a footnote. And that's really all I have for my overview, unless you have some questions for me.
Continue.
All right. Now I'm Julie Heifel with the interim report for you. You gonna do it? Okay. So, good morning. The quarterly interim reports are one of our routine financial statements that we bring to you twice a year, and so this is the second quarter version of that report. It allows us to bring anything to your attention that we see going on mid-year that you may need to know about. And so in this case, second quarter results, you've got the narrative report in front of you, and you've probably seen that there's very little really to talk about today. All of the numbers are closely tracking with their budgets, but I'll run through them just because we've got it for you together. So we start with the revenues, major revenues, and the big players are, of course, ad valorem property tax and sales tax, which are both very close to their budgets through half the year. Sales tax is right around 49%, and to give you the dollars, I did take out the effect of public safety sales tax number 3 because we don't have enough year-ago data to make it apples to apples. So to give you the actual percentage increase, I took that out. So it's 3.9% above last year, $1.5 million for those categories, and 49% of budget. And investment interest is up again, still rising. You had some explanation in your narrative about that. It's a little bit of change in the mix of what the cash manager is investing in, and rates are slightly up, and so that's affecting our interest. And then we're still giving you an update on mortgage reg because this is the final year of that phase out of that revenue line for us. So we combine the registration and the recording fee net effect, and so it is as expected, 1.3 million less than last year, but right on with budget because we've changed all of our budgeted projections for that revenue. So bottom line is that the majority of all of our major revenues are tracking with their budgets. For expenditures, I provide you two schedules, the general fund and the other budgeted funds. And so the general fund, all of those departments in aggregate are at 45% of their budgets, so that's under, which is gives a little breathing room for the rest of the year. What do I have? We have a trigger in the report that says anything that varies more than 5%, we want to at least investigate and talk about. And so looking at DTI, it's 56%. They were the leader of the general fund departments. Really, it was nothing. It was a timing of their transfers to projects that happened last year in November. They transferred earlier this year, so you'll see a smoothing out of that over the third quarter, and that leaves all the general fund departments really on track with their budgets. The other budgeted funds are way under at 38%. So the explanation for that is you'd expect to see it a little closer to 50, but really all that activity, a lot of the activity is related to debt payments in September, and so you're not going to see a bulk of the spending until third quarter, and that'll smooth that out, and it'll be very close to the 75% by the end of third quarter. Those are the expenditures, and then you have the cash balance statement, which is for informational purposes only. What do I say about? Just lists all the additional cash that you would have the opportunity to decide to use if you chose to. It would go through one of our CIP processes or some type of a board action in order to use it. And those are all the statements for that interim report, unless you have questions.
Questions? Okay, Mr. Allen.
Just a general comment. I just want to thank you and your staff. You play a very important function in the county. First of all, the verification of tax dollars and grants that are accounted for and spent correctly is an important function. And also, by having these strong financial statements, as you alluded to in your presentation about our bond ratings, and I know up here we clearly understand the differences that a AAA bond rating has for the county, and especially with the large issues that we're doing. But there's a reason why Johnson County is successful in these, and it's a total operational effort, and we do thank you for your effort.
It is. Thank you. It's all throughout the county. We have excellent financial folks.
Good presentation. Thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other items under reports?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Moving to commission comments. Mr. Schaefer.
I'll move ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two issues to share with you today. Speaking as to Julie's comment regarding our successful libraries and parks, we had a chance, Maury and I had a chance to visit the Monticello Library last Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock with some other invited guests. And I can hardly wait until we have the grand opening on the 5th, because it is a grand library, a grand space, and I think the people who use that facility will see how well we do our libraries and other types of things, those types of things in Johnson County. It is truly a grand building, and I think it'll be well enjoyed and well used by all the people who choose to go there. Number 1A, we know that the Lenexa Library is under construction. I can hardly wait to see how that thing turns out, because it'll be just as nice as well. So congratulations to the library board and all of us for voting to move forward with our bond issues and all the things that make these things work for Johnson County. Number 2, Tuesday morning, 2 days ago, this is the 3rd anniversary of what we call Double Up Food Bucks. This occurred at the Price Chopper in Roland Park Tuesday morning, sponsored by Mark and a number of other groups of people. Food Fair, Family Support Division of Kansas, Kansas Department of Children and Families, American Regional Council, KU Medical Center, Cultivate, and U.S. Department of Agriculture. This gives the opportunity to our citizens who use food stamps called SNAP to double up to $25 a visit their food quantity issues up to $25 a day. And these are for fresh fruits and fresh vegetables only. They're produced by local farmers, and it's a great program. So when you're in Price Chopper, tell them thank you for what they do for us, because that is a great event. It was well attended by a number of people, and I'm glad I had a chance to participate 3 years ago and also last Tuesday morning. It's a great program.
Thank you. Mr. Ashcraft.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, 1 week ago, I had a call from an employee of the Driver's License Bureau that's a constituent of mine, a very interesting conversation. He had alluded to, as he pulled up to the parking lot in the morning, maybe 6:45, he looks up, and first of all, there's a Planet Fitness there now. It's difficult for the employees to get a parking space, but he would pull up and he would see the line. If you're familiar with that facility, it would go to the south all the way and then jack back to the east where Avaludo's restaurant is. So before he walks in the door, you see 200 people that may have been out there from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And you could just sense his frustration. I tried to reassure him the employees there are not the problem. You know, they're doing their job and they're trying to do it efficiently. And the process is I asked on an average application to renew a driver's license, even with getting the mark to be able to get on the plane. He said those normally can be processed in about 10 minutes. He thought they were averaging about 500 a day. But it appears the most immediate problem they need to address there is some type of queuing system like we have that I think actually may have worked and they frankly may have overreacted on. So any advice to anybody with the driver's license management listening, frankly, the thing they should dramatically try to address immediately to correct that and make it better for the employees and the customers, in my opinion, would be addressing that queuing system. If it only takes 10 minutes to process it, if you know what time, and even if there's a variable of 30 or 40 minutes there, would improve the process. And just to give an example of customer service, I had to take a box back malfunction to Spectrum off of 119th and Antioch. You walk in the front door, you're met by a customer service person, ask what you're doing. They cue the information in, very politely, make sure that they're doing it. When your name calls up, and I know this is apples and oranges somewhat, the representative actually comes out and meets you and greets you and everything else. There's something to be learned about customer service. Wouldn't have expected at that level. And I liked the presentation today on the award. I would still say there's a lot of technology improvements or things that could be done in that Kansas driver's license. But I think it was just personally, I was kind of just disappointed that those employees are going through that. And right when you show up to work and know it's going to be a long, tough day. And frankly, that can be addressed. So.
Okay. Good point. Mr. Osterhaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few items here. Last week, I had the opportunity to sit down with Robbie Mackin after we met and have lunch with Penny and Commissioner Allen and myself. And I just want to say it was just refreshing to hear, because for years I've talked about running big box buses and how that's not the most efficient way to provide transit service. And it's so exciting to hear Robbie talk about alternative forms of transit, Uber, Lyft style things. It was a very great meeting, and I really thank Jim for his service on the KTA board, but also Penny and staff for their work in moving that method of transit forward. Workforce development this week. This will be something Commissioner Ashcraft will enjoy. They're starting a new dashboard, and they're going to measure the people served and the let me think here. The people served and the people that come through the door, and how many of them are employed, and at what pay rate are they employed? Not just working a minimum wage job, but working a job that provides for a family and allows for a certain level of comfort in life. Some really exciting things for workforce development. And then yesterday I had the opportunity at the Central Resource Library to celebrate the rededication of the Black and Veatch Makerspace, which if you haven't been to, check it out. There's a lot of great things, 3D printing, green screens, a lot of things for kids that kind of want to get their minds around some STEM-related stuff. But Black & Veatch renewed that partnership with us for 3 years, and so we thank them because that's an amazing space, an amazing resource that we offer at our Central Resource Library. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 items. One, wanted to bring to everybody's attention that Under Sheriff Doug Bedford's mother passed away unexpectedly a few days ago, earlier this week, and funeral was yesterday. I was unable to attend due to a previous commitment, but wanted to extend my condolences to his family. And Sheriff, if you'd pass that on to him, I'm fortunate to have both parents alive. I do not in any way, fashion, or form look forward to the day that I have to go there. So my condolences to Doug and his family. I have had multiple meetings, just bringing a general note to everyone's attention. I've had several meetings about the Sunflower Army Ammunition Plant, former, and continue to work to see development occur at that location in the future. I hope to have some fun, big news, hopefully by the end of the year. And then to just tack on to Commissioner Allen's comment about the driver's license office, we have they've brought employees from Topeka in who are trained and ready to fill in. That is helping some, and we will have a third, that is confirmed, a third driver's license office in Johnson County, Kansas in 2019. So while both of the first one is a relatively quick fix, but only having a minimum amount of impact, the second item, adding a driver's license office, should have a huge impact in time. So hopefully we see a reduction in those waits and hopefully a reduction in those complaints. Thank you.
All right. Well, I know the Kansas Department of Revenue continues to work on that issue, and I don't know that we've ever received really complete comments as to why the electronic queuing system is not being used, which would help out immensely as we find out in our DMV operations. So also notice that Monday evening, July 30, in this room, we will have a public hearing on the county's proposed 2019 budget, and that will begin at 7 p.m. in this hearing room. We do have a request for an executive session and of about 15 minutes. We do have agenda review for both regular business session and PBC yet to do. So let's try that at what, 11?
Okay. Thank you. I move that the board recess its open meeting and convene an executive session at approximately 11 a.m. for a period of 15 minutes for the purpose of receiving the advice of counsel and to preserve attorney-client privilege, and to reconvene an open session in this room at approximately 11:15 a.m. or as soon thereafter as the executive session may end.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the request for the executive session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. So we will continue in recess, and we'll take a short break and come back for agenda review for next week's business session. Thank you all very much. Good morning. At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the purpose of agenda review for next week's business session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer is in the building.
He's in the building.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka is absent. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Would the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda items?
Item number 1, consider approving the July 12th, 2018 business session minutes. Item number 2, consider reappointing Mike Jones as the 4th District Representative to the Housing and Community Development Advisory Committee through March 31st, 2021.
Any question on those items? If not, they will remain on consent. Item number 3.
Consider approving the July 17th, 2018 special business session minutes.
Mr. Klicka was absent, so that will remain on action. Next item.
Item number 4, consider approving the elimination of the service area boundary restrictions for paratransit service in Johnson County and provide paratransit services to the entirety of Johnson County, Kansas.
Mr. Powers.
Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Josh Powers, County Manager's Office. This item before you relates to the elimination of service area boundaries for paratransit in Johnson County. Going back several decades, in fact approaching 40 years, we have limited the provision of paratransit service to residents who live within this service area boundary that you see on the map. That's 47th Street on the north end, 159th Street on the south, State Line on the east, and K7 on the west. So the proposal here is that we remove that service area boundary and allow paratransit to be accessed by all residents within the county. We've done a pretty deep dive on the ridership that occurs outside of this area based on who's using our taxi voucher program, and we estimate that we would see a 1.5 increase in ridership from places or riders originating outside of the area. That translates to roughly $10,000 a year in additional service, and that can be absorbed within our existing budget.
Okay. Josh, let me ask you this, and or maybe Mr. Thompson. Here, a couple of years ago, we extended vouchers for JCDS to operate in this area. What will be the impact there? Will there be any change there, or that program will? I mean, I'm glad they're expanding it, but what effect does it have on that program?
Chairman, I don't recall that we actually made any provision for that. You may be recalling, I know we had at least one instance, if not more, that I believe the resolution was they were bringing their son or daughter to a location kind of within or on the edge of that boundary so they can then utilize that service.
Okay, so would this have any positive impact on that?
Absolutely. This will fully extend those boundaries, so
Okay,
they would
very
not
good.
need to do that.
Okay, very good. Mr. Osterhaus.
I was just going to suggest we move that to consent.
Consent is fine. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Consent is fine. This is long overdue. I would encourage, consent is fine. This is long overdue, but I would encourage Mr. Powers and Mr. Allen and the KCATA to continue to look at this effort, because this is a nominal cost and the service impact can be huge for a very, very important population. So good job, but do more.
All right, this will be going on consent. Next item.
Item number 5, resolution number 052-18, application number SW-ADUP-3401 MC. Consider a request from Phelps Engineering Incorporated, applicant, and Holtwick Family Trust, landowner, for an accessory dwelling unit permit located at 21135 County Line Road on property zoned RUR Rural District on 160 acres.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This item is for an accessory dwelling unit in the very far edges of the county, right at the intersection of Douglas, Franklin, Miami County. It's for, the ADU is approximately 2,600 square feet, or excuse me, 1,800 square feet within a 2,600 square foot barn. And it was approved by the Southwest Zoning Board on June 27th, and staff is also recommending approval of this item. I can give you a quick idea of what it will look like with that elevation there.
Okay. Questions? All right, well, this is a planning item, land use, so it will remain on action.
Jay, the only thing I learned out of that, we have a property that touches 4 counties.
Yeah, the notification was quite a process on this.
Yeah, that's what I understand, yeah, so. All right, next item.
Item number 6, consider approving an agreement between Johnson County, Kansas and the City of Olathe, Kansas for the joint utilization of compressed natural gas, CNG, fueling stations located at 1800 West Old 56 Highway and at the City of Olathe Public Works Facility and the Murray L. Nolte Transit Center.
Good morning, Chris Butler, Director of Fleet Services. I didn't want to take transit there, I almost did. In October of 2015, the Board of County Commissioners approved an agreement with the City of Olathe for the design and construction of a combined CNG fueling station at the Nolte Transit Center in the City of Olathe, actually housed on the City of Olathe property. On June 19th, that station is now completed, up and running and operational. On June 19th, 2018, the Olathe City Council approved the current version of the document which we're seeking approval of, which is the interlocal agreement, and then forwarded on to us for your consideration. The document is very similar to a document that we designed and developed in our legal department in 2013 for shared use of our CNG station at 1800 West 56 Highway. It really just incorporates the fact that we now have 2 stations. We want to work together to be able to utilize compressed natural gas to benefit both agencies, to make sure that we have redundancy in operations and make everything as smooth and cohesive as we can together. That said, this new document and agreement supersedes that 2013 agreement that we had in place. We are going to agree to develop a set of procedures, which really are just fueling procedures, again, that we have been doing now for 3 years, but we're going to formalize that with the City of Olathe. The document doesn't go into a whole lot of detail on pricing. It actually talks about how pricing is developed for compressed natural gas, the components that go into it, and it briefly touches on accessibility issues. Other than that, it's pretty basic in terms of just working together to provide the provision of compressed natural gas.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Butler, yesterday I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Reinhardt, and this topic came up, and I was going to ask, I'm very supportive of this effort. I think it makes sense, but one of the sensitivities we had in 2015 was the long-term outlook on the cost-benefit components of CNG versus other energy sources. What is your understanding, and how does it look long-term for the continuation of this? Have you been able to update that, and are you tracking it?
We're tracking it, is essentially what we're doing right now. CNG has been a challenge, I'm not going to lie, over the last few years. When we first started talking about the development and design and construction of the station at 1800 West 56 Highway, the Public Works Station, there was a gap of about $1.50 per gallon, or diesel gallon equivalent, between the cost of compressed natural gas and traditional diesel fuel. By the time we constructed this station and it became operational in mid-2014, there was still that $1.50 gap, but by the end of 2015, diesel prices had actually, within a year and a half of operation, diesel prices had actually dropped below the cost of CNG. Now that said, compressed natural gas has stayed on a very straight line over the last 5, even 10 years. We're at $1.95 a gallon. Diesel prices have now started to, again, diesel and gasoline, to climb back up. So as we watch trends, as we watch trends with costs on diesel specifically, because that's our highest impact, we will start to get some of those gains back in the cost. In terms of actual operational costs, we're very comparable, and again, our units that we're now tracking maintenance costs of versus our diesel units similarly are only a few years old, so those costs are still pretty consistent. If you look at older diesel units, those cost gaps in cost per mile start to increase again, and we see those benefits. Additionally, you always have the environmental benefits that go along with compressed natural gas, as far as reductions of CO2, NO2, particulate solids, things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Consent?
That's fine.
All right, so noted.
Thank
Next
you all
item.
very much.
Item number 7, Resolution 056-18. Consider approving the fiscal year 2019 budget for the Johnson County Fire District Number 1 and disclosing that the proposed budget for Johnson County Fire District Number 1 for 2019 is proposed to be funded by property tax revenue exceeding that of FY 2018, adjusted by the 2017 Consumer Price Index, CPI, for all urban consumers and providing disclosure of the revenue and tax difference.
Robin.
Morning, Robin Symes with the Budget Office. These next 4 items are all similar. We will be having the fire district's budget approval next week, and these are the briefing sheets involved with that.
Okay. Well, these will stay on action for the record. Would you read the next item?
Item number 8, Resolution 057-18. Consider approving the fiscal year 2019 budget for Johnson County Fire District Number 2 and disclosing that the proposed budget for Johnson County Fire District Number 2 for 2019 is proposed to be funded by property tax revenue exceeding that of FY 2018, adjusted by the 2017 Consumer Price Index, CPI, for all urban consumers and providing disclosure of the revenue and tax difference.
All right, for the same record, number 9.
Item number 9, Resolution 058-18. Consider approving the fiscal year 2019 budget for Northwest Consolidated Fire District and disclosing that the proposed budget for Northwest Consolidated Fire District for 2019 is proposed to be funded by property tax revenue exceeding that of FY 2018, adjusted by the 2017 Consumer Price Index, CPI, for all urban consumers and providing disclosure of the revenue and tax difference.
And lastly, number 10.
Resolution 059-18. Consider approving the fiscal year 2019 budget for Consolidated Fire District Number 2 and disclosing that the proposed budget for Consolidated Fire District Number 2 for 2019 is proposed to be funded by property tax revenue exceeding that of FY 2018, adjusted by the 2017 Consumer Price Index, CPI, for all urban consumers and providing disclosure of the revenue and tax difference.
Robin, would you just briefly mention, when it talks about increase in revenue, there is action that the commission has to take and to notify the state?
Yes, there is. There's a computation that it's a state formula, and they go through that. And so all of the 4 fire districts have exceeded that computation amount for their ad valorem taxes. And so at the end of the day, it's not the mill levy, it's the amount of ad valorem taxes levied.
And there's, as I recall, there's some document that must be signed?
Yes. We have a resolution, and so we'll sign that, but that will be part of our budget resolution on August 9th.
Right. Okay. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Symes, will we be getting the supporting documentation?
Yes, we'll be uploading it here. We were just verifying all the numbers, and so we can upload it if you would like before Tuesday, so you can have some time to review.
That would be good.
Okay.
Those fire district items will remain on action, and there will be opportunity for public comment also on each of those items. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, that concludes our agenda review for next week's business session. We are adjourned from that activity. We continue in recess, and we'll come back after about 4 or 5 minutes for PBC agenda review. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
this time, at this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners, the PBC, for agenda review for next week's session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Clicka is absent. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft. Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. Item number 1 will be the minutes. Item number 2 on the consent agenda.
Project update.
Okay. I think we can wait on that update till next week.
Now you did it.
Now don't get started.
Chairman. Brad Reinhardt with the facilities. Yes, we're putting the report together, and we'll have an update on all the projects that we have in progress for you. So, sorry.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're going to ask him for an update on the update?
Okay, next item.
Item number 3, statement of net assets unaudited.
Julie Highfield will again report to us. And item number 4.
Statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund net assets unaudited.
Again, Ms. Highfield will also present that report. Are there any other items?
No, sir.
All right, that concludes our agenda review for the Public Building Commission for next week's session. We are adjourned. We continue in recess from our business session, and at 11 a.m. We'll begin our executive session. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Positive thoughts, that's what I always tell people. A positive thought. So that video. Continue view video. It was a special PBC. PBC. Trim off.
The record will reflect that at approximately 11:15 a.m., we reconvened from executive session into open session. No action is required, so we are officially adjourned from our business session. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.